We're going to go to the Wester Hotline, bring in Cody Alexander, who joins us. He's on Twitter at @TheCoachA. His site is matchquarters.com. Cody, thanks for joining us this morning, Jeremy and Joe. We spoke way back in the start of the season. You had some stuff to say about Cole Bishop and wrote a piece on Cole Bishop, and we got your thoughts on him. And by the way, good morning. Cody, sorry.
How you doing? No, you're totally fine.
Sometimes I just launch into it. Just a quick follow-up on that. Like, Bishop is a guy who, the Bills drafted him highly. We wondered. It was a bit of a rocky preseason. He missed time in his first year. But this year, I feel like a lot of Bills fans have seen that he's come as advertised. He's a very important player on this defense this year already.
Yes, he was a hybrid safety to begin with, just a person who had coverage ability, was able to play near the box. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time, especially for a safety that's so used to playing in a very kind of a static scheme at Utah, to then coming in and kind of running a more multiple scheme, especially from depth. I know that probably doesn't seem like, that needs to be an adjustment, but the speed of the NFL is much different than at the college level. And so kind of adjusting to the multiple coverages, calling it, knowing where to be, sometimes that mental load takes time, but he is a really good athlete, and he's really kind of shown this year of what everybody kind of expected him to be.
Yeah, well, the Bills will probably need him to be at his best. The secondary they have against this Jaguars passing attack. We brought you on to talk about a couple things. Let's start, though, with this Bills-Jags matchup, like a big overview. I want to get into the Jags defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanelli, and how he operates. But when you look at this matchup, do you think it is potentially the Bills' worst draw they could have had in the opening round?
Yes, I don't think that it's necessarily the best matchup for them, just because on both sides of the ball, the Jaguars kind of do things that the Bills kind of struggle at. They're going to be okay living, especially in this offensive scheme that Liam Cohen has created. They're okay running the ball. Game control is a real issue. The fact that Trevor Lawrence has really kind of come on the back half of a passing, that, the Bills have really good passing. But I kind of heard your previous person, kind of the intro into this, talk about how elite quarterback play kind of beats elite secondary play. On the flip side, I think what the Jaguars do defensively, this is a zone coverage defense. They're not going to let you get big plays. They're going to be okay with kind of giving up a little bit in the run game. But this is a defense that has been on fire on the back half of the season. It's been one of the better defenses on the back half, and primarily in this last quarter of the season.
What do you say to people that would point out that? Because I feel like playoff time of year, when you're playing a team you haven't played before, you're kind of comparing resumes. We've talked a lot about that. Like, the Jags have an 8-game win streak, and there are some softer opponents in there. Do you take any sort of lesson from that, or have they just been pretty good most of this year under this new defensive coordinator?
Well, I go and look at kind of a Broncos offense that is not the same as the Bills, but it's kind of structured in the same way, of where they really want to use the run game. They don't necessarily have a premium receiver. I know Sutton is a very underrated outside threat, but they don't have just a game changer at receiver. And you saw them literally go into Denver, kind of take the offense, make it, and then go against an elite defense and kind of do whatever they wanted to. Liam Cohen really schemed up that defense, knew exactly what he was trying to attack. So on this back half of the season, it is, I look at it, yes, they played in the AFC South, which was not strong in the back half of the season, though they did have to play the Texans. But you go and you look at it, some of the teams that they played, this is a quality opponent. This is not the Jaguars from last year. And I think that it's really hard for a lot of people to then also see, hey, Trevor Lawrence is playing really well. He's actually kind of becoming the person that we thought he would be under a really good head coach in Liam Cohen.
When you see their run defense on the year, they haven't given up a 75-yard rusher. I know there aren't a lot of attempts against them, but do you feel like that defense can keep James Cook in line? I mean, really, the Bills have struggled when they can't get Cook going. So what would you expect from that battle this Sunday?
They do a really good job of not getting out of position. They're not going to be too aggressive. They're not going to blitz you to death. They're not going to try and force the issue. They're not trying to play for tackles behind the line of scrimmage. They're going to sit there and they're going to try and constrain the space that they have on the field. They're going to change up structures depending on what you're doing. This is a team that can go from a wide 9, basically a 4 down front, and then they can flip to the next play and they can look like they're in a 3-4. So depending on what you're doing and how you're trying to attack them, Anthony Campanelli has the ability to then change that because of some of the roster pieces that he has within his defensive front. And then those two linebackers are athletic enough that they can chase down running backs outside. And then also with your play action game, especially with the Bills, they can match up with tight ends in zone defense. So this is a defense that kind of takes away your play action ability. They're not going to let you get the deep shot or on early downs, but then they're also going to kind of do that bend but don't break. I know it's kind of cliche, but that's really what they're doing. They're saying, if we can limit you to 3 to 4 yards carrying, we're going to get you in a situation one of these times where we make a tackle for loss. Now you're in a passing down, and now we've got you right where we want you.
Have they had success confusing quarterbacks? I mean, Josh Allen's one of the best, right? Maybe the best, whether when you come down to accuracy, playmaking, big arm, he can do it all. And even in the mental side of the game, like we see him move pieces around when he can identify something. Has this Jacksonville defense been good at flustering even the best quarterbacks?
Well, I think that's where they really excel. If you look at kind of their coverage ability and what they do coverage-wise, they're kind of a mixed bag of different things. They really want to lean into cover 2 and cover 3. They don't play a ton of man. They're really lower in league average. But here's the problem is that they're really above average at all of those coverages. So this is a secondary that on paper you may not think like, okay, this was one of the worst secondaries in the NFL last year. They don't really have a premium safety, but they have some pieces at corner that can really take that away. And what he does a really good job of using his Fangio system, like the Fangio adjacent style of play. He did work under Vic Fangio and the Dolphins, running everything through a 2-high shell, really making it difficult for you to attack that intermediate zone in the passing game. And that's really kind of where they've kind of feasted on people, is that ability to then kind of change coverages, make you think about what you're seeing, and being able to change that up from down to down to attack the way that you're attacking them defensively.
Are we seeing, like, this kind of happened with Shanahan and McVay on the defensive side of the ball, that the best defenses are really coming from Fangio all across the league?
Well, I would argue that there's probably three different ways of doing this. And the crazy thing is that Anthony Campanelli came from like all of them. So, the Fangio adjacent 2-high system is kind of the premier one that everybody sees and talks about. The Raven system, it's kind of I call it the Ravens 2.0. So post Wink Martindale, Mike McDonald, Jesse Minter playing this, to use a lack of a better term, but so everybody understands, is that shell defense where we're going to be in, and everybody's going to be deep. We're going to play a lot of cover 2, play some quarters, but you have no idea what that's going to look from. And then the other part of this too is kind of that, Saleh, Shanahan. People hate it when I say this, but it's really what it is. It's the Shanahan defense. So the flip side of what he wanted Saleh to run post 2018 of wide 9. So 4 down, really wide defensive ends, pinch everything inside. We're going to play a lot of cover 3, play a lot of quarters. It's really what the Houston Texans have kind of amplified. And that's kind of what you're getting. It's the best amalgamation I think I've ever seen. And I wrote about it on Monday on Match Quarters. It's literally a football nerd's dream. Like, it's everything that you would want. And then you sprinkle in, I think the other part of this is the idea of winning first down with some sort of pressure. And what you're seeing is with him, it's not necessarily coming from the blitz side, but he has the Flores kind of all 7, the hot coverages, meaning that we're sending 5, 6 defenders, but we're playing zone coverage behind it. He has that in the bag too. And that's what really makes this defense really difficult, is because you don't know when and where he's going to bring those elements in. It's not as predictable as some of these other defenses because he can pull from a large bag.
Cody Alexander, he's on Twitter at thecoacha, matchquarters.com. He wrote about the Jaguars and their defense. Cody, I want to ask you about the Bills' defense. It's been a year where they've had a bunch of injuries. They've had their real big problems stopping the run. But they've also had this tendency to have great turnarounds and great halves. And whether it's getting unconventional, whatever it is, like, they have a good secondary. And they're kind of piecing it together. I wonder what your thought is on the job that Sean McDermott, Bobby Babich have done with this Bills defense, and whether or not you think they might be up to the task of slowing down this Jacksonville offense.
Well, that's the thing with I've talked about this before with the Bills defense is kind of the NFL meta flipped on them. So we built this defense to beat the Bengals and the Chiefs. And then all of a sudden the NFL decides we want to go pretty heavy on 12 personnel. We want to get into 21 personnel. The Shanahan McVay system has kind of exploded through, the two best examples of this is probably out west with Seattle and the Rams, both trying to get into 12 personnel, which is two tight ends on the field, but then we're trying to pass the ball out of it. So we're trying to get these matchup situations. And I think what the Bills have been able to do primarily on the back half of the season is we're going to start blitzing from the secondary. So we're going to blitz off the edge. What that also does is leans into what they've also done, which is a lot more stunting of the front. So they're moving the front. When you have lighter, quicker guys, the best way to kind of use that against the offense is to then move them really quickly. So we're stunting into gaps. I'm moving from one shade to another. So I'm on one side of the lineman, I'm moving to the other. And what you've been able to do is really, and I thought the Eagles game was a great highlight of kind of where I see this defense in the playoffs, is we're going to move these guys. We're going to try and get penetration early. We're going to use the secondary. If you're going to get condensed, we're going to do the old Spagnuolo. I mean, and the Bills have been doing this forever under McDermott, which is like if you condense that receiver, we're going to blitz the corner. And I think that we saw that against the Bengals. We saw more movement against the Eagles. And that's really kind of on this back half of the season is what you've seen the defense kind of clean up. How can we get better at defending the run because you can't go get a nose guard in the middle of the season.
Cody Alexander, the Coach A on Twitter on this Bills-Jags matchup. As you kind of lay that all out, some have suggested, if they beat the Jaguars, that not that the road gets easier, but that this might be the toughest test. How do you see the rest of the AFC playing out? We've got 7 teams here, and it's more open than ever before. It's part of the narrative around this Bills postseason run is that there's no boogeyman in the way of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So when you fill out your AFC bracket, what's your ultimate pick?
Yeah, this is to me it's so funny that we're sitting here talking about okay, the Jaguars are a really bad matchup, and there's a huge but after that is you have the premium quarterback in the AFC is going to be Josh Allen. You basically have Superman, playing for you at quarterback, and I think that's where a lot of people have kind of a pause of okay. I think the New England Patriots are kind of a paper tiger. I'm not a big believer in schedule strength. I think you have to win your games. They won all their games, but if you really break them down, kind of look at what they are as a whole, I feel like they're going to struggle as they get on through. I'm not a big believer in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think anybody is. I would be more inclined to worry about the Houston Texans if I really believed that offense was going to be able to win games. I think the defense is one of the most elite defenses. They literally do nothing on defense other than punch you in the mouth on every single play.
I was going to say, don't they run the same? They don't even, do they call plays or they just say play defense?
Yeah, it's basically we're either going to run cover 3 or we're going to run some sort of a too high shell. We may sprinkle in a blitz on 10% of our plays just to make sure, give Petrie a bone at nickel and let him go blitz off the edge. But yeah, no, that's essentially what they do. And then to keep going, the Chargers are kind of in the similar mode of the New England Patriots is that they won a lot of games. The defense isn't really as good as people think. Offensively, what are they going to look like? Do they want to pass the ball? Do they want to run the ball? They've kind of been Jekyll and Hyde. So that leaves me really with the 2 teams, which is the Buffalo Bills and the Denver Broncos, who to me, I think those are the 2 best teams and the 2 best setups to win. And if you want to go off on quarterback play, because typically in the playoffs, the best quarterback typically wins, I do think that the Bills have a really good opportunity. If this is a year to kind of sneak in, I say sneak in and they've won 12 games, and it's really only because the New England Patriots won 14. You know what I mean? So It's if there was a year that you could kind of say that this might be it to get there, I think that this is a really good opportunity for the Bills. If they can get through this matchup, it really kind of gets not necessarily easier, but the matchups are really more advantageous for them.
Very good.
Very quickly, what makes you a big believer in Denver's chances? Is a lot of it the 1 seed, or you think they are that good?
I do think home field advantage has to play in it. I do think that this defense is really, really difficult for a lot of opponents, and I don't mind the offense. I think I'm a big believer in Bo Nix. I think that Sean Payton does a really good job of game control. I think he's been really vanilla in the regular season. Now, if I watch the second round and it's the same vanilla stuff, I'm going to be a little bit more concerned. But I do think that the two best opportunities coming out of the AFC are going to be the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills.
All right. Cody Alexander at the Coach A on Twitter and matchquarters.com, the website. Cody, thanks so much for the time. Always a pleasure getting your knowledge and talking to you here.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, go to the matchquarters.com. I read his write-up on Anthony Campanelli, the defensive coordinator in Jacksonville, about like the chaos and the way they bring pressure and the challenge that it is.